When you think of the most influential anime to have ever reached the States, what do you think of? Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon? All fine answers, but not necessarily the only answers. We've dabbled in the more curious examples of anime reaching further beyond its initial impact in the forms of titles like Kite, and joining its kind is Battle Angel, or Ganmu in Japan, or Battle Angel Alita for the US manga release because for some reason or another they changed the main character's name to Alita. You screw it, it's complicated. A 1993 two-episode OVA that came and went without much fanfare, Battle Angel faded away like so many other OVAs at the time. However, when ADV released it on DVD in 1999, it quite simply took on a life of its own, to the point where we're getting a Battle Angel movie. That's right, in June of 2018, we're gonna get a Battle Angel movie. Footage has been shot. Money has been spent. Over $200 million, in fact. Not only that, but it stars Jennifer Connelly, Jackie Earle Haley, Michelle Rodriguez, and Christoph Waltz. And it's being directed by Robert freaking Rodriguez and produced by, you guessed it, James Cameron. And it gets better. To those in the know, our pal Jimmy has been clamoring for a Battle Angel movie for, get this, 17 years and counting, ever since Guillermo del Toro turned him onto the manga back in 2000. Since then, he's been biding his time, churning out money for 20th Century Fox in the form of Avatar merchandise, waiting for the chance to make a Battle Angel movie a reality in the time it takes to raise a kid from infancy to full-grown adulthood. You don't do this unless you are committed with a capital C to this idea. And because of this fervent belief and drive, we're getting a Battle Angel movie before we're getting a Cowboy Bebop movie. Before a Robotech movie. Before an Akira movie. Battle Angel will beat all of them to the punch. Now, with the recent box office bombing of Ghost in the Shell, which couldn't happen to a nicer movie if you ask me, there might be some pushback on the release of this, which might also explain why news of this development hasn't been circulated as widely as other similarly budgeted projects. Seriously, $200 million? That's Marvel Studios kinds of money. But all of this just comes back to my original point. Why Battle Angel? Of all the titles one could choose from, of all the timeless classics that would be slam dunks for Hollywood, why Battle Angel? Hopefully we can find that out by taking a look at its anime adaptation. But probably not. Why? Because the anime was never a priority. There were 2 episodes planned and made, but nothing more than that, since creator Yukito Kishiro wanted to focus on the manga and simply wasn't serious about the anime adaptation. To this day, Battle Angel is the only anime adaptation of the property. Because of this non-committal attitude, the anime comes off as an extraneous bit of curiosity, rather than a faithful adaptation, which more than explains its meh response in Japan. Though warmly received here in the States at the time, it too wound up discontinued and has been out of print for over a decade. And what's worse, the deeper you go into the OVA, the more you realize just how much potential was lost. But what we have is what we have. This is Battle Angel. We begin with Egon Spengler here. Seriously, they're practically twins. Rummaging around a junk heap looking for spare robot parts when he comes across a curious find.
She's alive. Incredible. She's really still alive.
Finally, I can build the waifu of my dreams! And he does. He manages to save her brain, names her Galley, and puts her into this compact little robot body with the biggest head-to-body ratio I've ever seen. Look at her, for crying out loud. John Merrick would feel sorry for her. She is not an animal. She is kind of a human being. Well, enough of that nonsense. We're 3 minutes into this episode, and we need to spoon-feed the audience necessary exposition.
You see, with cyborg technology, most body parts can be replaced with synthetics. Everything except the human spine.
And that means that there's a thriving black market of ruthless organ brokers who'll take the back from under your shirt.
Oh my god, what's wrong with your everything? This one-and-done character is so fascinatingly ugly. I feel like an entire college thesis could be written about this man's face alone. From his chin that looks like a wad of chewed up bubblegum, his droopy frog face, his soulless, light-filled disease eyes, to the fact that he doesn't even have a top to his head, just a hubcap riveted to his skull like it was a battleship's hull. This man's absence of intent and purpose is a black hole of logic. Many questions plague me at night, but none so infuriating or omnipresent as to who in the wide world of sports greenlit this design. In case you couldn't catch that because of your new nightmares for the next few weeks, Egon warns Gally of what's known as spine thieves. Don't you mean wives? Because you see, wives often, all I'm trying to say... You have a very long arm. Still, these spine thieves are no joke, as poor Tiffany Grant here can tell you.
Who's there?
Give me your clothes, your boots, and your spine. Please. Though the world Gally finds herself in is fraught with ne'er-do-wells and cutthroats, all is not bleak as she befriends and is later smitten by Egon's hired hand, Shinji. Okay, the character has little, if anything, to do with Shinji Ikari, but I'll be damned if I can separate Spike Spencer from Shinji.
Jeez, what are you made of? It felt like you weighed a ton.
Can you really blame me? Also, numbnuts! She's a cyborg! Why wouldn't she weigh a ton? Still, the two are hitting it off swimmingly, with Shinji waxing poetic about gathering enough money to buy his way into the city in the sky, Zalem, meanwhile cursing his fate to live in what he deems a squalid pit. While that is happening, Egon gets a visitor.
Why, Sharin? Why do you want to go back to Zalem so badly?
I have to. There are things that I didn't get a chance to finish.
Like how the animators didn't get enough time to finish my lip flaps. Yeah, it's most likely because Reiko here, seriously, it's the same voice actress as Reiko from Golden Boy, doesn't want to breathe the dirty air when she's used to the crisp, clean air of Zalem, and while that is a nice bit of character for her, it's hard to ignore how this also makes the shot easier to animate. Or film, if you're trying to make a dirt-cheap Christmas movie helmed by a certifiable Nimrod.
And I love hot chocolate.
Which is why in Naruto, everyone runs without moving their arms. It's just simpler to animate. Why? What did you think it was for? Because it looks cool? Looks like their lunch could have gone better, seeing as how Reiko wants back into Zalem and Egon leaves her hanging. Mostly because he's too busy bounty hunting criminals at night in his Anderson cosplay.
He's done it! Another victory for Zariki! With the disappearance of the great Gariska, he is inarguably the new champion.
Hey, Brett! That reminds me. Quick sidebar.
The manager of the TC Giants must publicly prostrate himself and apologize for his team slump!
Hey, Brett! Okay! Jimmy, Bobby, you can make a Battle Angel movie where Gally is a chocolate pixie that farts lollipops for all I care, but if you do not have Christoph Waltz caving in dudes' skulls with a rocket-powered sledgehammer like he was playing Fallout 4, your 18 years of trying to make this movie a reality will have been for nothing! Egon does some damage, but is quickly caught off guard. But in comes Gally to go absolute slaughterhouse crazy and go on a complete rampage, leaving only Tiny Tim here alive by making him plummet into the water.
I nearly had him. One more second and he would have been mine. One more moment and I would have been wearing his scalp as a hat! Yes.
And what they call a hunter-warrior. A bounty hunter.
You're known as a hunter warrior. What, the committee couldn't decide on either? Now that Gally has tasted human blood, she now thirsts for more, deciding that she too wants to become a hunter-warrior. Egon takes the news, shall we say, harshly.
Don't be stupid! You don't know what you're saying! I didn't give you limbs to do things like this. You don't have to work. All you have to do is be beautiful.
Aegon, I was kidding about the whole waifu thing. That certainly came out of nowhere. I'm sure the show meant for it to be coming from a place of parental love, but with that tone and what he says, it's more internet nice guy creepy. Ugh. While Gally justifiably runs off, Tiny Tim makes an unexpected stop with his repairwoman Reiko. But seeing as how she now has a means to show Egon up by augmenting Tiny here and make him squash Gally, she can only salivate at the prospect.
Grishka. I'll not only rebuild you, I'll make you more than a match for Ito's little toy. I'll use every skill and dirty trick I know.
I'll bust out all the paper clips and Elmer's glue for this one.
It doesn't take long before Tiny is back on his feet again, or for Gally to become a bounty hunter and make a little doggy friend. Aw, I sure hope this pup doesn't meet a bloody and emotionally cheap death. I should really stop thinking out loud.
Baby, are you ready to play with me? Gally!
I accept.
Put him in a body bag, Gally! And she does, in a fairly exciting and well-animated fight that, unfortunately, is backed by both of them screaming their heads off like they were Judge Doom. Well, guys, the good news is that you all don't have to worry about me using the dubs for episodes anymore, seeing as how I'm now deaf!
Gally, your powers and abilities are still growing, which is fine, but...
Maybe next time you can fight in this cat girl outfit I made for you.
With all this excitement going on, one might forget about Shinji, who seems to be moonlighting as one of those spine thieves. He's in the middle of another shakedown when his boss suddenly appears.
Please help me!
You didn't have to kill him.
Yeah, we could have just left him to die in this alleyway, bleeding out from having his spine removed with an axe. That would have been more humane. He then offers Shinji a job, helping him with his duties delivering goods to Zalem, which... Okay, if he isn't directly employed by him, then what capacity does Shinji's job entail with him? Just seems needlessly confusing if you ask me. Still, Shinji is dead set on paying his way to become a citizen of Zalem, and Gally is more than willing to join him in his dream, double-timing on collecting all the bounties she can. Sadly, Shinji tries to pull a fast one on the wrong mark, specifically the mark of the Blue Oyster Cult for some reason, and winds up with a price on his head. And that's when the anime takes a decidedly dramatic turn. Gally has fallen hard for Shinji, so when news of his deeds hits her, it hits her hard. The following scenes are pretty much the best parts of Battle Angel, with Shinji admitting that his drive to get to Zalem was from seeing his brother being sold out by his own wife trying to do the exact same thing. And this is where my main gripe with the series enters the picture. There is rich and fertile soil here for a setup, a unique setting, a heroine you want to learn more about. So why does it wait until halfway through the second of only 2 episodes to utilize any of this? From the direction the story is going, it's not hard to see that there was meant to be more than 2 episodes made here. Or at the very least, the source material stretched further than what could fill 2 episodes. So it decides to truncate where it can and present itself as some kind of distilled version of the manga. And if that were the point, it does its job, but it makes for a wholly dissatisfying sit, watching what can be considered a glorified commercial for the manga. I suppose it's a good problem to have, leaving the audience wanting more, but a problem is still a problem. And speaking of problems, one shows up in the form of Zalem from Iria, who just slays Shinji for the bounty. He's shown up a few times here and there, but almost always in the background. He's practically a non-entity. But that's not true anymore, as he's been chafed raw by Gally gobbling up all the bounties she can. But one well-timed lightning bolt later, and he's gone for good. While that was as awesome as it was pointless, there's still the very much dying Shinji to worry about. But thankfully, Reiko here overheard their conversation and takes pity on them, getting them to Egon's where he fits Shinji with a new prosthetic body. Of course, such actions have consequences with Shinji's boss.
I'm leaving.
Hey, wait a minute. I think it's time to send you to Zalem.
Well, that's certainly a funny way of saying that she's going to be dismembered and her organs sold off at auction. Sadly, Shinji's boss has been lying to him since no one can pay their way into Zalem, as explained by Egon. And unfortunately, Shinji overhears this and in a desperate grab, tries to make off for the city in the sky via the connecting tubes on the ground. Meanwhile, Egon finds the boss and just unloads an unholy beatdown on him.
What's that ring for?
It's a defense ring. Against rodents and other vermin. Zalem drops them periodically to keep rats from climbing the tubes.
You see, lines like that really help paint a picture of the setting of Battle Angel. Does he mean literal rats? Or metaphorical rats? Though Gali manages to catch up to Shinji and plead with him to come back, tragedy strikes and Gali watches helplessly as Shinji falls into the clouds below. We end on Egon and Gali paying tribute to both Shinji and Reiko with a balloon, wafting into the rusty sky above. And that was Battle Angel. You know, I think I understand why James Cameron wanted to make this movie for so long. What little we have here in the anime is full of potential for a story about greed and consumption, about nature versus nurture, and about ambition and desperation. But seeing as how the anime doesn't seem too concerned about pursuing these themes with any real tenacity, it's almost frustrating to watch. As it is, it's a perfectly serviceable OVA and one that has aged pretty well, flaws and silliness aside. It's just what it could have been seems so much more than it is. And I hate saying that because I don't believe in judging art by what it doesn't do. Because where do you draw the line between what you think it should have done and what you just simply wanted it to do? If I were to look at the anime as it is with no concern towards its development history or the manga, or even the upcoming Hollywood adaptation, then I'd certainly feel more forgiving toward Battle Angel. But trying to compartmentalize these thoughts, separating them from what I know to be true, it feels like I'm lying when I say it's perfectly adequate. Perhaps the burden of expectation is alive and well here, and it's up to all of us to come to terms with what we know, with what we feel. At the end of the day, though, color me hopeful with the upcoming anime adaptation, which is something I never thought I'd say. Which also says a lot about the sorry state of things now, doesn't it? Still, there's always hope. Well, this certainly took a more pondering route than I initially intended it for, so why don't we look at something more brainless? And I mean brainless with a capital B. Till next time.